Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the CREST Network regular Tuesday morning webinar. With me today is from Atlanta, Bill Giannone, and also Cheryl is here and she'll be addressing one of the questions coming up. Good morning, Bill.
Good morning, Dick. How are you?
We're great. We're great. It's always great to be in Florida and knowing that it's going to be 95 degrees today.
I think I've actually got you beat. I'm visiting a CREST client of ours down in El Paso, Texas, and yesterday it was 109. Today it's going to cool down to 105.
Nice. I forgot you were in El Paso. Uh, that's great. So Atlanta gets a reprieve.
Yes, it does.
Today we have, I don't remember, maybe about a dozen questions that have come into us over the past couple months. We couldn't address all of them last month, and we have since had a couple more come in. So, as is our norm for once a month on Tuesday, we're going to answer some of those questions, hopefully. So, I'm going to jump right in to the first question. And the first question, I've pulled the lucky tab, and it's me. And the question is, what's involved in sales coaching or sales team coaching? And it's almost an entire webinar on its own. So I'm going to try to address just a couple things that I think are significant. One of the things that we've learned over the years is that the return, the ROI for specific targeted sales coaching has been about 700%, 7 times the investment of the cost of hiring coaching services. That median return should be about 700%. Amazingly, it's just continually shocking to me that managers that are locally in charge of their sales and marketing staff spend less than 73, or excuse me, spend less than 5% of their time coaching their sales teams. 73% of the managers spend less than 5% coaching their sales teams. And that is a really bad mistake. Some of the key points that I strive for when I'm coaching a sales team is to make sure that the sales force is effective at achieving the business goals that are laid out. We also want to create more A players, and I refer to them as ultra high sales performers. And yes, I recognize that they're technically not selling a service or a product, they're marketing a service or a product, but we want to make sure that we create ultra high sales performers. I can tell you that I've been pretty pleased over the last several years at the amazing success rate of some of these marketers that we've worked with. They're killing it, as the saying goes. The other thing that we try to do, and it's extremely important, is to help retain talent, to keep those people employed, minimize the turnover, because turnover is so so expensive that you're spending $10,000 or more to hire and retrain a new marketer because you've lost the momentum once that person leaves. So CREST coaching uses a process of inquiry so that we can tap into and understand what the marketer's strengths and weaknesses are, and then we work to enhance those strengths and try to solve the weaknesses or strengthen those, build those up. And what I have found over the years is that, and this applies to all of us, not just the marketers that I'm coaching, but it even applies to me, and that is no one, absolutely no one, unless they're a sociopath, nobody likes rejection. And that is the number one problem with sales and marketing people today, is they shy from the rejection, which means that they aren't doing the things they need to do to get the sale or to get the referral. And so we have concentrated on teaching our marketers how to ask for the sale. If they can ask for the sale, they can get past the rejection. I'm done, Billy.
Terrific. Why don't we just move on to the next slide, Dick?
Sorry.
No problem.
There we go.
That's great. Get this one all the time. Obviously, most of us on the residential side, we run into this or a version of this all the time from our contractors dealing with adjusters. The insurance company doesn't want to pay for a service call. How can I respond? Well, if we look at the line item in Xactimate, I always like to use the line that, hey, we're using the vehicle that you guys want us to use. All right? Regardless of who owns Xactimate today, the reality is that it's created, and it was a vehicle and a conduit created for carriers to try to standardize the invoicing process on our side. And you know what? For most of us who use Xactimate, we understand the quote unquote rules of the game, and we're willing to abide by them. In this case, one of the things that we can use to make a really good argument for using the service call is the definition itself within Xactimate. If you go in there and you look at what a service call is defined as, now obviously, for those of you who don't know, you go onto your line item in Xactimate, go to the pricing or the unit pricing spot on that line, and there's, if you right click, you should be able to get a little eye, and you click on the eye, that's the information. It gives you a description of what that line item entails. Well, for the service call, you're getting paid because the call comes in and you have to then use your office staff to start doing the allocation of resources. You need to dispatch crews. You may need to move a crew from one place to another. So you're expending resources in order to make that service call happen. The argument that these guys say, well, that's a tool of the trade, or that's the cost of doing business, you kind of have to kick back and say, where exactly am I getting that cost of doing business in the invoice I submitted? For many of you, you might be putting 10 and 10 into your invoices, and if you are, that's fine. And then the insurance company may turn back to you and say, well, that's where you're putting it. But remember, the language itself for the service call says these are direct costs attributed to you having to act and having to expend resources because of this project. So getting guys out to the job, remember, you're not billing for any services on this job until you have a signed work authorization. So you're not able to start clocking hours and things like that, because if you don't sign up the job, what is how much money you're getting from the insurance company? You're not getting anything. So you're expending resources. These are direct costs attributable to the job. So yes, it's a very legitimate, sound charge. Now, there's a couple of caveats. If you happen to be a company that's in a program, if you're in a TPA program, if you're in a preferred vendor program, you have to read your contract many times. In the contract, it will specifically exclude the ability to charge a service call, that they will then put that language in there, that this is part of the cost of being in the program. There are other restrictions that you might run into as well in other parts of your execution of your project, but that specifically is worded in most of the TPA agreements, that you cannot charge for a service call. But for those of you who charge for it and get kickback, use the language in Xactimate. Use the language as it's stated. And don't be snarky. Just, cut and paste it right out into your explanation. And I can actually give you a little heads up. If you use it as an F9 note in that line item itself, it could go a long way towards resolving it before it ever reaches you. Try that when you submit your Xactimate invoice. Try adding the F9 note with the language directly from the line item itself and see how far that gets you. Now, I can tell you one thing, the insurance companies have been pretty entrenched in this particular line item for a good 8 to 10 years, that they've been trying to fight this and fight this and fight this. So you might get a lot of hesitancy in somebody wanting to believe you or buy into you. Just understand, this is not going to be a foolproof way of doing it. It's just another way to try to respond to their blanket, we don't pay for that. Okay, guys, just always have facts on your side, and always try to use the program to your advantage if you are using Xactimate. If you're just billing time and materials, make sure in your price list, if you're billing time and materials, that your price list includes a line item for initial response or service call. Make sure it's there listed as its own line item. Otherwise, you can't charge for anything that's not on your price list unless it's a direct incurred cost. Something like if you have to buy a piece of equipment or if you're renting something, you can pass those along. But let's make sure we have it as a line item, guys. Thank you, Dick.
Thanks, Bill. Next question, back to me. How do I know if my marketer is really effective? That's a loaded question, and I'm often asked that by an owner or a general manager, and the answer is twofold. It's probably a combination of both the marketer and the owner or general manager as to why they're asking the question. And usually they're asking the question because they don't feel that the marketer is effective or as effective as they want them to be. The fact is, sometimes it's a case of the sales manager or the GM owner not recruiting the right people. And maybe it's a case of not inspiring or motivating that marketing team toward achieving the kind of numbers that you want to achieve. What I have found over the years, again, is that if you want your marketer to be effective, to really produce what's out there to be produced, they have to know how to qualify a prospect. And yes, there are many times when an insurance agent or a plumber or property manager is not the ideal candidate for being a client in your business. Your marketer needs to know who to see, when to see them, how often they should visit, how often they should make a phone call, or what's becoming very, very common today as relationships expand is texting. Many of my marketers that I work with each week are sending and receiving texts to their marketers and or to their clients. They need to know what to say, and they also need to know what not to say. It's amazing to me that marketers just arrive and spew out stuff without thinking of the actual effect that it has. So we work with marketers to teach them not only what they should say, but there are a number of videos on the CREST website for the members on some things that you should not say. Also, there's a video on there about learning how to ask, ASK. Learn how to ask for the sale or ask for the referral. Again, one of the biggest reasons that marketers and salespeople don't ask is because they're afraid the answer will be no. They're afraid of the rejection. They also should be using diligently a CRM, customer relations management software. It's the only possible way that the marketer can keep track effectively and efficiently with who they saw, what was said, and what they need to do at the next visit to have it be a legitimate stop or a legitimate contact. They also need to learn how to mine that data that's in that database. And they also have to learn how to prospect. The prospecting process should be a never-ending strategy of trying to build a series of potential clients in the sales funnel. So I'm going to encourage you as owners and managers and even the marketers. Are you being paid, and are your owners and managers paying you an appropriate compensation package? I certainly hope so, and those that I work with, I know do that. Have you taught your marketers how to use the CRM? Have you made available to them the appropriate forms and checklists and the documents and materials to be accountable? And then are you holding them accountable? And last, what are the consequences when they fail to perform? You have to have consequences. You know, we have consequences for children when they do something wrong. There has to be consequences for failure to achieve. Bill, it's your.
Appreciate it, Dick. Is this a good time to do a review of my company's financials? I just got asked this question on Thursday from one of the CREST members. And this is an absolutely perfect time to do a review of financials. First reason is obvious from the calendar. We're just now approaching the midway point of the year. So it's a great time to take a snapshot. You know, on a monthly basis, you're talking 8%. On a quarterly basis, you're talking 25% of a year. So let's do it right now at 50% of a year. If a few of you I know were able to put budgets together for this year, this is an absolutely perfect time to take that budget that you put together back in November or December for 2020 and be able to look at it and see if both your income and your expense projections are lining up with reality. Take a real hard, good look. For many of us, those projections may have gone out the window as soon as the coronavirus affected all of our lives. I can tell you from working with a few clients on their numbers that some clients actually, believe it or not, are in a favorable position compared to where they were on their budgets, because they were able to capitalize on the scenario of coronavirus both to enhance what they were offering in terms of products, because a lot of guys did go out and do some disinfecting and cleaning. And the other thing they were able to do is they were able to limit their expenses, because a lot of the, let's just call it discretionary spending, was curtailed, meals and entertainment. Unfortunately, some marketing expenses may have been cut back a little bit because nobody was in their offices. But if you do look at the budgets, and if you were able to keep your revenue fairly consistent over that first 6 months, there's an opportunity to look at your budget compared to your actuals and see that you probably did not spend as much money. Again, there are those of us who were able to apply for and be granted the PPP loans. That doesn't necessarily, if your bookkeeping is being done properly, that's not showing up as revenue for you. But if you're using it properly and trying to get the forgiveness portion of the loan, you're using it for payroll. So the money you would have been spending on payroll should still be in your bank account. So it should reflect a slightly better picture. But even if it's a terrible, terrible outlook and you way underperformed, it's still a great time to take a look at your financials, guys, because it gives you a real good focus. We could be ostriches and put ourselves and put our heads in the sand, hoping and praying things are going to get better. And I can promise you that for most companies who do that, the second half of this year is going to be far worse than the first half. I like doing what we can do to be proactive. I like taking the bull by the horns, acknowledging what the facts are about our company. Remember, the facts are not emotional. The only thing that's emotional is how we respond to those facts. So if your revenue's down by 20%, your expenses are up by 10%. We can't get emotional about that and say, oh, this damn virus hurt my company. You know what? The damn virus is there. There's nothing we can do about it. Let's see how we can perform better in the second half. We're doing that a lot. I mentioned before that I'm out here in El Paso, Texas, out here working with one of our CREST Elite members, and we're spending a lot of time this week overseeing what happened in the first half and setting and laying the groundwork for the entire second half of the year. It's a really good refresher. And just in one day of being here, we've already established and identified some really important trends that if we were not looking objectively at the numbers and the criteria, would have been a little more difficult to understand. So it's a really important exercise for you guys, and it can make the difference between a very successful second half and a second half where we're shaking our head and wondering what's going on. So please take the time in the next few days, even if it's through next week before the July 4th holiday, get a really good idea of where you are as a company based on where you want it to be, and make some really good 3 or 4 really solid determinations about what you can do to change things. I can promise you guys, one of the first and most important places to look will be in your marketing efforts. And if you have any questions on how to enhance or change or augment your marketing for today's new and ever-changing world out there, please reach out to Dick, because the clients that we're working with who are making these changes are finding great success. And I just want you to make sure that you're not limiting yourself. Reach out to Dick, have a conversation with him. I'm sure there's things that he can let you know that you can do to enhance your opportunities for the second half. Back to you, Dick.
Thanks, Bill. There we go, got it. Cheryl's going to step in and address this question. So welcome, Cheryl.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Everybody thinks that onboarding some new hires is a matter of giving them paperwork to fill out and then pushing them to their desk or to another team member. The process is actually involves some logistics and is a lot more to a new employee than to just give them paperwork to fill out and say, there's your job. If you give the new team member an overview of the culture of your company, the missions, the projects, the strategies, you're going to keep them a lot longer. You're going to have less turnover. Some of the things we've developed an onboarding checklist for new hires. And some of the things are, as soon as you hire as soon as you have the new hire, they reach out to them, say how excited you're going to be to have them to join your team. Make sure he or she knows when to arrive, and make sure they know they're going to have a warm welcome when they get there. The day they start, give them a welcome card signed by all your other employees, all the other team members there, or notebook, a pen, a mug, something that of your company swag. Provide them with an employee handbook, including a social media documentation. They need to be aware of the do's and don'ts related to posts on social media that can directly impact your company. Identify any legal issues related to your industry, such as HIPAA, if you're working in the medical field, industry manuals such as the S500 or S520. And then sometime during the first week of employment, host a little get-together or a small meeting or a one-on-one to go over the company history, your mission and values. Also any important milestones. And familiarize your new hire with leadership and introduce different departments. Go over perks, protocols for time off, sick days, etc. 30, 60, 90 days, go back and solicit feedback from the new hire. See what they think you can change or add to your company culture. Making that employee feel welcome and making them always feel welcome will keep them longer as they progress through your company, and you won't have to keep hiring new employees.
Thanks, Cheryl. Next question is, see if we got it here. There we go. I've been asked this many, many times, even over the last 10 or 12 years, about how a manager or an owner can set proper marketing goals. And the short answer is, it depends. The real answer is every single company is different. The goals that one owner has, the next city over, a new owner can have totally different goals. Some of those goals are related directly to the success of the company. Others have goals that are more outside the company, and their personal goals, and the company has to produce in order for those personal goals to be achieved. Many times the marketing rep has actually come to me and said, hey man, my boss is asking me to bring him or her a proposal. They want to see something on their desk that lists out what my goals are as a marketer, and I don't even have a clue. I don't even know where to start with that. A lot of times the owners are doing that because they just want to see if the marketer or salesperson has the vision, has any vision toward generating a legitimate ROI. Some of the critical factors that should be considered could include, who is your target audience? What should we do to retain our existing customers? These are questions that they really should be put in writing, and then there should be written answers to them. What is the actual skill level of our sales team? I know and work with marketers and clients of CREST that some of them have one marketer. Some of them have multiple, 2, 3 marketers. A couple years ago, I worked for a couple years with a client that had 6 full-time marketers. And yes, they were doing $25 million a year in business. And then the question is asked, how do we measure the effects of that marketing staff, and how do we know what success should look like? And then who's going to monitor the actual implementation of that marketing process? And although I talked briefly about this on my last comment here a few minutes ago, how are the sales and marketing people held accountable? Unfortunately, it's my experience that so many owners and GMs simply do not hold their people accountable. Yes, sure. Sometimes they dictate how many visits a marketer has to do in a day. I have a client right now that demands that his marketers make a minimum of 20 visits, physical on-site visits a day. If they drop below 20, there is a reckoning that takes place. And so I don't agree with that. I fight it. I argue with him constantly about it. And it's one of those things that it's very difficult to change in his mind. But I maintain it needs to be about quality, not about quantity. That doesn't mean you accept when a marketer says, hey, I only visited 3 people today. I spent 2.5, 3 hours with each one of my clients. Oh, they just talked and talked, and boy, that's just great. The problem there, as you can imagine, not only does the prospect they don't think you have anything legit going on, but often when you analyze that situation, that particular prospect isn't producing anything, isn't giving any referrals. So what should the marketing goals be, and how do you set them? Let me give you some examples, some real quick examples of some things that you can do to set either your own goal, or if you're the general manager or the owner, setting goals for your marketers. You ought to be writing a minimum of 2 blog articles a week and submitting them to the appropriate person in your office that can put them on the website. If you're a marketer out in the world calling on plumbers, calling on insurance agents, maybe occasionally an adjuster, then you should know some interesting details, and you should be able to generate a blog post or 2 every week on some particular topic. And we're going to address another question coming up later in this webinar, or in a few minutes, about being a thought leader. But also, number 2, you should be able to generate a video post once in a while. Yes, some of us aren't real fond of being on camera. Some of us are fine with it. But generating a video post of you answering some common questions that come up, those make incredible, current, relevant content. And then a horrible mistake that I see happening a lot is people that post on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and sometimes even on Pinterest, but they're doing hard sell posts and comments. And when I mean hard sell, yeah, that's what I mean. I don't know how to explain it any more than it's in your face, obnoxious, overbearing, offensive to most people. And so you've got to learn how to do soft sell. And soft sell works really great and is very well received on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn. Another thing that you need to do is, as a marketer, one of your never-ending goals should be to continually strive for familiarity. Make sure that your client, your prospect, is familiar with your company and familiar with you, familiar with your name. It's kind of like the politician that says the same thing over and over and over again. He's doing that or she's doing that to increase familiarity. The more familiar people are with you and your company, the more comfortable they are with you and your company. As a marketer, one of your goals should be to increase or improve your closing ratio or your conversion rate, converting a non-client to a client. You should know those numbers. Every marketer should be able to tell the owner, the manager, or me as their coach what their closing ratio is. The closing ratio should become a marketing goal to constantly strive to have a higher and higher number, a higher conversion rate. And then last but not least, define in writing your ideal client. So many of the people I work with, even today, I have had to start out by getting them to put down in writing who their ideal client is. If you don't have your ideal client listed out and in writing what they should be, what you want them to be, then you don't even have the right goal to target. Thanks. It's yours, Bill.
Thank you, Dick. We just landed a large loss and I'm a little overwhelmed with the billing. Can CREST help me with this? The short and long answer is absolutely yes. One of the things that I did when I first got involved in this business about 11 years ago now is I got involved with a company that only did large commercial losses. And because my background was Wall Street and numbers, I found myself attracted more to the billing side of it than I did the production side of it. So while everybody else I was working with was very concerned about what was going on out in the job and taking all the measurements and all the moisture readings, I was very concerned with what the invoice was going to look like at the end of the project. So I really dedicated and dove into that, and I got very involved in billing. And over the last 11 years, I've produced literally hundreds and hundreds of commercial invoices, and I've had hundreds of conversations with the commercial adjusters and the so-called experts on their side. I will tell you guys that when you're dealing with a large loss, the people that are hired by the insurance companies to review your work are a lot more professional than they are on the residential side. They have a lot more knowledge of our industry than they do on the residential side. So they deserve a little more respect from us than they do on the residential side. That said, there are many, many times when they will make assumptions or they will make allegations about our invoice that are just either factually incorrect or misleading. So we have to make sure that when we invoice, we're very accurate in what we invoice for, and we're able to defend everything we put down on our invoice. You know, there's an old adage in court that if you're caught lying about the small stuff, the jury can assume you're lying about the big stuff as well. Well, you know what? In invoicing, the same thing applies. If you put something down on an invoice that you really can't justify, even if it's a $50 line item, if you can't prove it and justify it and document it, there's a really good chance that every penny of your invoice is going to be put into question. So yes, we can help you with this. This is something that I'm currently doing right now, believe it or not, with 3 of our CREST members. We've been blessed in the last few months that the CREST members have really taken a lot of their education to heart and are working the program and have come into quite a few nice sized losses. And a few of them have reached out and are just looking for some assistance. For instance, one of our clients has reached out to us to help them from the very start of the project with collecting the data and building the invoice. Other clients may have already billed, and then when they get that first letter from the expert or the adjuster saying, well, we appreciate your invoice, but we only want to pay you 62% of it, then they need a little help with some language. Obviously, we can help with that as well. It would be much better in the future if we can be part of the initial process instead of coming in at the end, because sometimes by the time we get in, a little bit of damage has been done. And that's why the educational part of the support, training, and education that CREST provides is so important. Because if you make the mistakes on the job, it's really tough to rectify them in the invoice process. But if you are educated as to how to go about executing the project, learning about how to document and communicate during the process, then your invoice is really just a culmination of all of your efforts, and it's a lot easier to get paid. Doesn't mean you're going to get paid every penny, doesn't mean you're going to get paid right on time. It just means that you put more of the advantages on your side of the ledger. So just understand, guys, if you do get a little overwhelmed with either how to create the invoice, how to justify the invoice, how to make those fights with the adjusters, reach out to us at any time. We've got myself and a whole stable of experts from Scott's gang and Misty, all the way on down, that can help you with any part of that invoice. Please make sure you reach out to us. Back to you, Dick.
This seems like a repeat to the questions, but it's just a little bit different angle. And I was asked this a couple times over the last couple months: who actually hires coaches and consultants? The 2 or 3 questions of those that asked me this came from smaller companies, less than $3 million a year, and had never actually engaged or hired a sales and marketing coach or a business coach or any kind of a consultant to help them. The fact is, companies that need specific project help, such as on a commercial disaster, might hire a consultant to help them do it right at the beginning. And that's what Bill just talked about 2 minutes ago. It's a whole lot easier to be hired or be on board already when the big job comes in, because someone like Bill or Scott Tarpley's team can help them do it right out of the gate. As it relates to who hires coaches and consultants, your very best athletes hire coaches. And you might say, geez, why would an athlete, a really good athlete, hire a coach? Well, because there is always room for improvement. And we're often, the CREST network is often engaged, and contractors become members of CREST even when they're doing really well, because they recognize that they can always do it better. There's always some area that can welcome or embrace improvement. Many people hire coaches and consultants so that they are provided the right strategies immediately. If you all don't know this right now, it is a brand new sales world that we're living in. In today's world, it is so dramatically different than it was in, let's say, 2008 or 2010. After the quote unquote Great Recession, the world changed dramatically. And hopefully, most of you recognize that after, or as we're hopefully winding out of the COVID pandemic, that by itself changed the way we do business, and it is going to change the way we will do business moving forward. As a coach, I often bring very specific, targeted training to those marketers and salespeople that I work with. I help them maintain the right regimen. I help prepare them for the game of sales or the game of marketing, and be sure that the sales game is dramatically different than it was. Today, the sales game is so different that it would be kind of like going out and playing softball, but using a football as the ball that you're throwing to home plate. One other thing that I help clients do, especially the marketers, and often I'm talking with the owner as well, is to help prevent mistakes, to help make sure that they don't go off chasing the shiny red ball and start telling their marketing people to do something that might not make sense in the big picture. It should be noted that even those business owners who consider themselves experts in their field are rarely experts in every phase of their business. And that's why I'm brought in on many, many, many coaching projects. And it's why Bill Giannone is brought in on many, many business issues related to invoicing and financials and admin. Bill, back to you.
Thank you, Dick. During this COVID, a couple of times I've heard this from our crews, that the guys have been working really hard, but recently have been giving me some attitude. How can I keep the crews focused and motivated? You know, this becomes a real double-edged sword for us. You know, Cheryl talked it before when we're doing onboarding, how we have to create an atmosphere for our team, and we want to try to instill in them a good attitude, but we also want to get feedback from them on things that they observe. Well, here's one of the things that's been going on during COVID. For a lot of us, we've kind of changed our staffs around a little bit. Maybe some of us have reduced our staff because the workload's gotten a little lower. And then we'll get these pops where we'll get a lot of business because all of a sudden things feel like they're going back to normal. Or we may have offered some cleaning services to go along with the COVID, and now we're talking about major work coming into the company. And if revenue has been suffering a little bit, yes, every job matters. So they're working really hard, and we might be overworking them. But now you're getting a little bit of attitude out of the guys. How do we keep them focused and motivated? You know, there's a lot of schools of thought here. The old school of thought, and coming from Wall Street, you know, our attitude was money solves everything. So you could just throw money at people. But you know what? There's been studies out there, and Dick can attest to this. There's been studies out there that for over 90% of the workers in this country, payroll is important, but it is not the single most important aspect of their life. For most workers, they're in a job where they're resigned to what they're doing, and they're resigned to what they're going to make. And the thing that matters most to them is that they feel like they're being productive, and they feel like they're being appreciated. So much more than just saying, hey guys, here's $100, get your butts back on that truck and go. Or worse, oh, so what, you've worked 10 days in a row. What's the big deal? I'm paying you and you're making good overtime. You know what, guys, that doesn't work in the long run. And that actually creates an atmosphere where these people feel like you value them less as a person and more as a commodity. And in order to have a great team, Dick touched upon it before, you don't want to have to keep replacing your staff, because the cost of onboarding and replacing a staff member could be $20,000, $30,000, depending on the type of position that you're filling. So it's much cheaper and much easier to do what it takes from a motivational standpoint to make your company a cohesive, focused group. So you know what it might take? It might take for us to leave the office or to leave the house, head out to a job one day, and maybe just bring out a cooler of Gatorades and some sandwiches. And maybe they're working really late at night, and maybe you pop in and you bring out, some ice cream or something. And you just tell the guys, hey, take 10 minutes. I really appreciate all the effort. If you go out there at that time of night and you show them that you care about them, believe it or not, that goes a really, really long way psychologically towards making them understand that you appreciate them. Now, I'm not going to tell you to do all of that in lieu of giving them $100 here or there, or throwing them a little, a friendly gift card. We worked with a client years ago who had a really novel idea, and I really found it worked really nicely. When guys would be working on a long shift, if he had like a little mini cat or something, and guys would work, 8-10 days straight, he would go out and he'd buy $100 Amex gift cards, but he didn't give it to the worker. He gave it to the spouse of the worker. And he said, this is for you. Thank you for letting us steal your husband or your wife for this period of time. I know how much it's inconvenienced you at home. Here's a little something for you and your husband. Maybe you can go out and have a nice dinner. Do you know how far that went in terms of goodwill with our companies? It went really, really far. And guys were so appreciative, and their spouses were as well, because we sometimes forget that if we just ask a guy to work 12, 14-hour days, he might have a life outside of our workplace that he needs to attend to, especially now in this environment where people have their kids at home all the time and there's a lot of struggles and stresses. We need to be very sensitive to that. So guys, make sure you look outside yourselves and look outside the bottom line a little bit, and look for those little things that can help create that good, focused, motivated crew, letting them know that it's not just about the money, that sometimes it is about them. Back to you, Dick.
Thanks, Bill. There are right now on the CREST Network's website, we call it Behind the Curtain, on the members only side. There are currently over 11 hours of short 8, 10, 12-minute videos, and there are over 19 hours worth of 30 to 60-minute webinars on a very broad array of topics. And one of those videos is a video where I address and talk about becoming a thought leader. And I put it out there because I thought it was significant, but you never know how many of your members are actually watching that. And I was so surprised and actually pleased that someone asked me recently, tell me more about that thought leader concept. What's it all about? And it's something that many of us have strived to achieve, but it's kind of one of those things where you can't just say, I'm a thought leader, because that's kind of like saying, hey, I'm a big deal. I'm really important. People are disgusted by that. They're turned off by that. So the concept of becoming a thought leader is where you do a certain set of things over and over and achieve that status where others place you in the thought leader role. So a thought leader it's kind of like somebody that's considered a go-to person. I refer to them as being a maven. In other words, where you're their trusted advisor. If you're calling on hotels, the hotel owners and managers simply believe you know everything about hotels. When they feel that way about you, they start to think of you as a thought leader. If you're calling on nursing homes, the same thing applies. When you seem to know and can espouse things about nursing homes, that elevates you to that thought leader status. It's kind of like creating a celebrity status, even if it's in your own local market. Thought leaders are just simply known, and they're known for what they actually know, and they're thought of as being a maven or a trusted advisor. So you should be asking yourself, in order to work toward the concept of becoming a thought leader, can the ideas or the beliefs that you have, can they actually be implemented? Is your point of view, is it fresh? Is it new? Is it related to current times? Can your thought leadership actually influence someone or others? And then it's something I harp on continually. Can you become a trusted advisor? Can you become the very best maven, the very best go-to person that you can possibly be? I have harped for 10, 11 years now on the concept of delivering a Maven article to your clients every single visit, every single time, and every visit a brand new Maven article. And to make it easy for those folks out there calling on customers to actually deliver those Maven articles, we have created a pretty amazing library of Maven articles that all you have to do is click the download button, download it to your computer, and print it out, or print out 50 of them if you're going to deliver, if you're going to visit 50. And even better, we've created them in a series of topics related to the particular vertical that you're calling on. If you're calling on the vertical of insurance agents, we've got, let me look at my list here. We've got over 50 Maven articles specific to insurance agents that insurance agents would enjoy reading. We've got 30 or 40 for plumbers. We've got 50 or 60 for general commercial buildings. We've got dozens for hotels, dozens more for nursing homes, churches, property management companies. So if you want to be a thought leader, one of the easiest ways to be a thought leader is to deliver a new and different Maven article every single time that you visit a client. And last but not least, you should be, as a marketer or a salesperson, you should belong and attend to the chamber meetings, or BNI possibly, or Blue Goose. These are just ways, especially when you are Also utilizing the Maven concept. They are just great ways to become a thought leader. Back to you, Bill.
Thank you, Dick. My business partner and I have different visions of our future. How can we resolve our differences? This came up a couple of months ago with one of our clients, and it reminded me of a company that I worked with many, many years ago. The two owners, I was brought in to resolve a dispute between the two owners because the two owners had highly different visions. One owner wanted money in his pocket every year. Another owner wanted to invest into the company's growth. And it's a very, very difficult dilemma when both guys are very entrenched in their belief system. So I'm not going to be able to tell you that there's a simple answer and here's what you do. If you are someone who owns a business and has a business partner, the most important thing that you can have all the day, every day, is a combined shared vision for the future. You have to keep reiterating that vision. You guys as partners should be meeting several times a week discussing all aspects of your business. Well, I'm here to tell you that every single week you should set aside some time to go over your mission and your vision and your value statements in your company. And if you don't have them, let's have a conversation. Reach out to me and we can discuss the difference between a mission statement, a vision statement, and a value statement. But you need to have all three because they really clearly define both your thoughts and your actions within your company. But you need to make sure that your visions between you and your partner are always in line. The second that you start to differentiate, you need to address them and get back in line. Doesn't mean you have to fight over them. You may have to have disagreements or discussions, and you may have to have compromise. All partnerships have that. Hell, any of us who know that we're married, we have a compromising relationship every single day. And that's perfectly okay. If we're willing to do it because we're committed to the relationship or the partnership, then it's not a big deal. We look for the big picture. But you need to make sure that you're constantly reviewing and getting your vision in line. You can't let it go to the point where I get a call and say, you need to come in because what I described before is a very disparate vision. How you operate your company, if you want to take all the money out every year, is far different than someone who wants to reinvest and grow the company. So let's make sure that we're constantly communicating with our partner. We're constantly making sure that we have a clear vision of what we want, and we're making sure that the company does not suffer because of this confusion of vision. Please make sure that you're honest, open, and clear. If you're not, that could be the very first sign of trouble that the company cannot overcome. Guys, when partners fight and partners argue, it's almost impossible to overcome. Back to you, Dick.
Thanks. I was bumping the mouse and it flipped back a couple, but we're back to normal maybe. Last question. I love the concept of prep, but I can't afford a full-time marketer yet. And what they were referring to is to devote specifically and exclusively to selling a commercial pre-disaster plan. Is there anything that I can do now? It just so happens that the prep program, which is now exclusively owned by and a part of the CREST network, recently added a whole brand new segment of the prep program for this very specific reason. So many of our CREST members have been doing great with their marketer, but they wanted to stick their big toe in the world of prep, in the world of marketing to commercial properties such as hotels and nursing homes and schools and so forth. And so prep or CREST recently created a prep prime which is slightly different than the Prep Elite. Prep Elite is a full-blown commercial pre-disaster program, is part of the Prep Elite membership or the CREST Elite membership. And that does require, if you're going to engage in the Prep Elite program, you need a full-time dedicated marketer. But today we have the Prep Prime program, which enables you, and it's designed for when you have a full-time marketer, but you don't want to devote that full-time marketer exclusively to going out and signing up pre-disaster programs. It isn't any secret that developing a portfolio of pre-disaster programs or clients that have your pre-disaster program, it's no secret that's an amazingly valuable portfolio to have. And many of our clients over the years and currently are, in fact, one of them just, I believe last week, just landed a very large commercial project that wouldn't have come to him otherwise, except that the client was a Prep client. So the Prep Prime program enables you to still dabble in, still do some commercial pre-disaster program work without having to hire and invest in a full-time sales person just to promote that. So if you're interested in, or you want to be a prep contractor, but you don't think you're quite ready to hire a full-time dedicated marketer just for that, maybe your territory doesn't warrant that, give us a call and we'll tell you what is involved in the Prep Prime program, which is just a simpler, easier way to achieve having a commercial portfolio in your file folder or filing cabinet. Billy?
All right, we'll knock this one out real quick. I need to hire some additional staff. Can CREST help me with that? Absolutely, we can help you with that. Cheryl gave you some great advice before on onboarding help and the proper things. So you're going to need to check with Cheryl on paperwork and processes. And if you don't have handbooks and employee agreements, those are things that obviously CREST can help you with. Dick Wagner, over the last 3 months, I believe, has helped 4 of our CREST members all around the country with interviewing and ultimately hiring new marketing staff. And I can do the same with administrative staff. So we can be a resource for you to be that last check and balance, to give you a fresh set of eyes on someone, or if you just need to figure out if it's time to hire new staff. Maybe you don't think that you need another technician, but you're at that point where everybody's getting 60 and 70 hours. So I know we've done videos on that as well. You can actually check out a video I did. I think I did a webinar a couple weeks ago about hiring and how to figure out if you're overstaffed or understaffed. So check out on the website. And if you want access to the website, reach out to Dick as well, because all of these very, very valuable assets and tools are there for you. Back to you, sir.
That concludes the Tuesday morning webinar. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Cheryl, for helping make this happen. Just want to remind people that the Cat 5 conference, as it stands right now, is still on. It's obviously been moved to November 9th, 10th, and 11th in Tampa, Florida. If we can pull this off as we intend, it will be the most unusual, different, and unique conference that's ever been presented, involving insurance adjusters at a very high level, JS Held, Young and Associates, international large loss adjusters that don't even leave their desk until the loss is over $100 million. So we're really excited about that. Look forward to talking with you next week. I'll be on next Tuesday. Thanks so much. See everybody next week. Bye-bye.